Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Detroit, Michigan Police Chief has confirmed they're looking for a serial killer. These cases all started to come together on March 19th when they received Detroit's East Side, the 11th precinct, a partially clad, which means partially dressed, deceased female inside of a vacant dwelling, aka home. When they found the first victim, they thought drug overdose. Excuse me. But then, as the coroner discovered, she died of blunt force trauma. She was either hit by the male and hit her head against the wall, which she would have been pushed really hard, or she was hit with an object. The information from the coroner, I believe it was 4 days. Another lady was deceased. She was found May 24th, again on the east side of Detroit, 9th Precinct, 13,000 block of Lyndhurst, partially dressed. The body was decomposed to a different degree, so she could have possibly been dead before the other victim. And then she also was found in a dwelling, an abandoned dwelling, partially dressed. And just like the first murder, the cases are very eerily similar. They do not have the info back from the coroner, but law enforcement's experience, they see it as a probable connection. Over in the 3000 block of East Side, over at the 3000 block of Mack on the east side of Detroit, the 7th Precinct, another vacant home, or as they call it, dwelling. It was a sex worker that was found, the victim, and called authorities. Again, appears to fit the same description of the other two ladies that have been found. Law enforcement thinks that the suspect is targeting sex workers. Authorities are urging sex workers in the east side of Detroit, and a matter of fact, all of Detroit, to take extreme caution not to go into any vacant dwellings. This case is of highest priority for Detroit, Michigan law enforcement. Again, the coroners only identified one victim, the first victim, waiting on the results for the others. But from law enforcement's experience, there's a very high probability the other two were done just the same. The last trend these sex workers have is they are in their 50s. The first victim was 52 and the second victim was 53. The third's age has not been determined yet. So it seems to be around the east side of Detroit, Michigan, in vacant dwellings, sex workers in their 50s is what seems to be the trend at this point. Live next to the vacant dwellings have been asked to pay attention to the dwellings and asked for anyone to come forward from these areas with any information if they saw anything strange, saw anything weird, somebody different lurking around the area that they've not normally seen. There is a reason that law enforcement are linking up these investigation, and it is still early in the investigation, but they want to identify this violent perpetrator, help bring their community a sense of closure. Huge concern for law enforcement is sex workers at this point. They are likely not to talk to law enforcement, and a risk with that is it could be days or weeks, and God forbid longer, before police would find a deceased person in a vacant dwelling, which makes sense. Why would they be in there if they don't have to? But I'm sure they're going to step up the searching of them and hanging around those areas. This is about locating a very violent predatory suspect and getting him off the street as soon as possible. The key is the sex workers. They are vital to helping us catch him, and the message needs to go out around the whole city. law enforcement believes they will begin to get tons of information in the next 24 hours. So we will stay up to date on this. There is also a Chicago serial killer that Chicago law enforcement was denying for a really long time. And that is another one I do want to talk about, because in April is whenever they have finally decided to recognize that there's a serial killer in their area. But it's taken 55 women to be killed before this was noticed. I think, in my opinion, that is too many, and someone needs to be held accountable. Is there someone inside law enforcement that has been doing these crimes and this is why it's taken so long? I hate to assume that, because look at Detroit. They're on it. It's been 3 and they're pursuing it. It took 55 for Chicago. Who dropped the ball? Hey guys, just as I finished this case, there was breaking news on the Detroit serial killer. They have named a person of interest in the case, and they want to speak to him. The person of interest that Detroit police are looking for is Kenneth D'Angelo Martin. He is wanted in connection with death of the 3 prostitutes.
Person of interest. He's identified as a Martin D'Angelo Kenneth. Martin D'Angelo Kenneth. He's a 34-year-old black male. His height is 5'9", roughly 160 pounds, black hair, brown eyes. He's known to be homeless. He's known to frequent the east side of Detroit.
Here is a map of the 3 locations the bodies were discovered. After 3 days of searching for the possible serial killer, they just named the person of interest. This is the home that the last woman was found at. This is Nancy Harrison, age 53, Travisine Ellis, 52, and another one yet to be identified.
We didn't start connecting the dots until subsequent locations of victims and residences that, as I oftentimes say, the signature or similarities in the crime scene.
This leads Detroit police to believing there is a serial killer in their city, or they're asking for help to identify this most recent victim. She was again found at the home of Mac and Mount Elliott.
What we do know, and what the victim is described as, she's an African-American female, approximately 5 foot tall, roughly 100 pounds. We have no information. We don't know her age.
There could be another vacant house on the east side that may have a victim. We have no reason to believe that, but we need to check it out.
They're not going to stop until they get the serial killer behind bars. The police yesterday did a door-to-door search through the vacant dwellings on the east side of Detroit, and some of the teams used cadaver dogs looking for the bodies. New update. As of last night, Detroit police have arrested the suspect they believe that has something to do with the 3 murders in Detroit. Kenneth Martin was arrested at 7:30 p.m. last night, June 7th, at the 7th Mile and the bus stop. The hardest thing to read and try to understand is a quote said by Craig. In many cases, when you talk about sex workers, they are invisible. They don't have contact with families. Many times they are homeless. That is what makes these cases so challenging. There could be more victims, and I'm not going to rule that out. Craig has also identified the other woman. She's 55 years old and African American. He won't release her name at this time. I haven't even gotten into details about the Chicago serial killer, but there is something that I believe the Chicago Police Department could take from the Detroit Police Department. They quote, "Rather than wait for another victim, he felt it was important to warn the community about the possibility." So, Chicago could take notes. The Detroit police believe there could be more victims. They are going to go through every dwelling that is abandoned or vacant, and once they're cleared, they're going to board them all up. They believe there's more than 1,000 buildings that they will be going through. With the 1,000 homes that need boarded up on the east side, they said to have them done by the end of July. That's what they're shooting for. Then they also have the west side of Detroit that has over 1,000 homes that need combed through and need boarded up as well. And they plan to have those done by the end of September.